Happy to second it.
I call the member for Moreton.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on the motion by the member for Murray, and I'm happy to applaud with her the efforts of Australian farmers. Now, I do so as the not as someone with a farming background. I'm the son of a butcher who did actually end up going back on the land, but obviously all Australians need to be connected to a farmer. And whilst I have an inner city seat, I do have the Brisbane's fresh food markets at Rocklea, which I'll touch on later. So I feel that there's a direct connection with the farmers. No one would quibble with the difficulties faced by all Australian farmers. I come from St George in Western Queensland, so at the moment going through some people have had some rain, but those never-ending droughts of the plagues of crop-eating insects, harsh climate change, making long-term adjustments necessary. Obviously, farming is a particularly daunting task, and add in that the isolation, the ageing of our farmers, and there's some particular challenges going forward for bush communities that support farmers and also for the farmers themselves and their families. I was talking to a friend of mine, Wayne Long, out in St George on the weekend. He works on a cotton farm. He's saying he's just waiting to see whether the water would flow through, to see what water was purchased, to see whether or not that, whilst they've put crops in, whether they'd have enough water to irrigate. So good luck to Wayne and all those waiting for that water to come. We know that Australian farmers are skilled and particularly intelligent and resilient. The importance of looking after our land is reflected by the United Nations General Assembly this year declaring this is the International Year of Soils. Coming from the western edge of the Darling Downs, I would argue the best soil in Australia, some might argue the world. It's important that we recognise this International Year of Soils, that we raise awareness about the profound importance of soil for human life and educate the public about the crucial role that soil plays in food security. As our world population increases, it will be even more important to keep our soil healthy and productive. The importance of our agricultural sector cannot be overstated also when it comes to our economy. It contributes 3% to Australia's GDP just from the farm gate. And when the value-adding processes are put in after the food leaves the farm gate, then the contribution to GDP averages out at about 12% to 155 billion. I would love to see that increase, that where can, particularly when it comes, as the son of a butcher, when it comes to sending packaged meat overseas rather than live exports, if possible. The gross value of farm production is forecast to increase by 8% in 2015-16. I'd like to see that dining revolution take place. I know that Australia can be, if not the food bowl, certainly a very, very well-stocked delicatessen, be it from Tasmania or from the Northern Territory or Western Australia. There are foods that we can send into that growing middle class in Asia. The importance of our natural resources are vital to sustain the agricultural sector. Although farmers bear the brunt of protecting those resources as the stewards of the land is up to all of us to do our bit to protect our valuable natural assets. There are approximately 134,000 farm businesses in Australia. Each farmer produces enough food to feed 600 people, 150 of them are Australian and 450 live overseas. Australian farmers produce almost 93% of Australia's daily domestic food supply. Obviously, as an inner-city electorate, I do have a few cattle at the Corinda State High School farm and sheep and some other crops that they produce, but obviously I'm an inner-city electorate. But I do know that the Brisbane produce market, one of the 6 central markets in Australia, plays an important role in distributing food. These central markets, like Newcastle, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth, are a huge industry, turning over $7 billion a year, and throughout Australia these markets employ 17,500 people. The Brisbane markets is my biggest employer, employing 4,000 people, not to mention the transport and other contacts, and Brisbane market turns over $1 billion a year. obviously, it's vital to our farmers that we look after fresh fruit and vegetables, and I'm sure Andrew Young, the CEO of the Brisbane markets, will be making sure the government knows that they should not bring in a GST on fresh fruit and vegetables.
I thank the